Hi everyone, my name is Susan Lloyd Militix, and this is the first in a series of interviews I am conducting with some terrific music teachers and musicians that I deeply admire. I think each of them are so worthy, and each of them have great inspiration to share with all of us. That was my motivation in creating this series. I'm very pleased to present the first interview with my dear friend and longtime mentor, Mr. Larry Vittone. In fact, during this interview, I found it difficult to use his first name. I think so much of him and have such great respect. He will always be Mr. Vittone to me, as he is to thousands and thousands of students. I think one thing that's very interesting in the interview is how we become aware that Larry Vittone deeply values the connection between himself and his students, and in having students in the youth band that perform out in the community, they also get to experience the importance of this connection in making music and sharing it with others, and that's a great gift. Larry Vittone was a music teacher for 37 years, and after that time he loved it so much he began this community youth band. It's called the West Shore Youth Band, and they've been operating for 18 years. And by my general calculations, he has helped over 1,000 students, and the number is probably much higher than that. So I hope you enjoyed the interview. Thank you for watching. From your heart, what's your favorite part about teaching? What do you love about doing it? Because you're still actively teaching. It's great.
I would say probably it's your relationship with the students, because teaching is more than just the notes. It's getting to know the personality and that character you're working with. And I think through really getting to know the inner person, that enables you to, first of all, teach them in a much better manner because you have an insight into them. So developing those relationships with kids over the years have been important for me. And of course, the overall excitement you get when you're working with a kid and he discovers he can get this high note or that high note. So it's just generally the excitement that you can extract from your students through music. And even when I'm teaching, I might be teaching a half hour, but to me it seems like 3 minutes for the most part. So that's part of it, just the general excitement of young people.
I love that. Teaching is more than just teaching the notes and getting to know students, and I suspect that resonates with a lot of teachers. That's terrific. Now, I did a little research and I noticed that you have received a special citation from the Pennsylvania legislature for your contribution to music and community youth. And so what inspired you when you retired from teaching to begin the West Shore Youth Band? What were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking that I wanted to continue my experiences that I had enjoyed so very much. And I had taught for 37 years, so, you know, there comes a time that you go out for retirement. One is your financial picture with retirement that you have, and also you're young enough that you can move on to other things that you enjoy. So I knew I would certainly miss teaching young kids, especially in a band setting. And one day, I happened to say to a young lady, Sarah Benson, who's now the assistant band director this year.
Oh, awesome.
I said to her, she was in 5th grade, I said, you know what, Sarah, wouldn't it be nice if we could get musicians together and play at community events? What do you think? And she says, I think that would be a good idea, Mr. Vittone. And that was started it. And then her father was the fire chief at New Cumberland Fire Department. And that was the key, getting a place to rehearse with liability insurance. So that was the idea, and I was exciting about this new event. And a key there also is knowing band directors, because in youth band, you're constantly relying on private teachers like yourself, band directors. So you have to know that loop, and that worked well. And that was kind of the start of how it got going.
And how many years has it been now?
This is the 18th year.
Oh.
It's like a second career.
Well, it is. Oh, I think that's terrific. And you actually answered my second question. It was, what was the challenges in setting that up? And certainly you addressed that with finding a suitable place and liability insurance is an issue for all teachers
today. You can't
today.
play anywhere without that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear a lot of parents commenting, whether they're students I teach here or in the community, how much either they enjoyed being youth band or their children really love it. What do you think are the benefits for the students of being in the West Shore Youth Band?
Well, I think one of the great benefits is the kids suddenly realize the importance of music more than they would, let's say, in a school band, because suddenly we're playing, let's say, at the New Cumberland Apple Festival. There might be 600-700 people. They give
cool.
the standing ovation. And I think they start to see in our audiences how much they appreciate that and, comments they get from the audience. So for them, it's kind of a little bit of showbiz. It's kind of like being in a marching band and you come out on the field and the roar of the crowds. So I think it's very motivating. And the other thing with youth band is it's more than just band. It's a social experience. We come in. It's a very relaxed atmosphere here, very relaxed. And every rehearsal, we run a snack break for 20 minutes out of that hour and a half. So kids get a snack. They get to, chit-chat. And so they like that, to see their friends. So I think that's some of the reasons they like it. Actually, I can't remember one dropout in the last 3 years.
Oh, fabulous.
I start with 50 or 60 kids. So if they don't like it, they're not going to want to come.
Oh, absolutely.
So a little bit of that.
What type of venues have the band been playing this past year?
We always make sure that venues have a crowd. And the way you do that is you tie it in with something where you get a crowd. Our opening performance is at Messiah Village in a beautiful chapel, a gorgeous stage with grand piano, has everything. So that's a huge crowd in there. Parents can come in on our opening concert. Then we do Bethany concert, which has a beautiful new auditorium, Rife Center, gorgeous, seats 300-400. We do that, big crowd. And then we do the combined concert with the New Cumberland Town Band at the Borough Park. In fact, you were there, I believe.
Yes, that was a good concert.
Then we move on to the Ice Cream Festival at Bachman Church, big crowd for that. We do a spaghetti dinner tied in with the fire department, big crowd, because the people come to dinner, come down, play at the Trinity Church, and the Apple Festival. So, you got 6 venues that have a good audience.
That sounds like a wise approach.
We do the same scenario because you don't want to overdo too many concerts, and that seems to be perfect in our space. So.
Oh, excellent. Oh, that sounds good. What do you think, from your perspective, is the value of community engagement in teaching music, whether it's as a band director or as a private instructor?
Well, I think community support is geared in many ways, whether it's through the school board that sees you're in the community will give you those extra $100 for the new instruments you need, because you have school board people and all that type of thing. And I think one thing that school band directors often overlook is that they'll, travel to Ohio for some festival to be rated in an auditorium, but yet might not play in a local Memorial Day parade, or maybe they won't play at the Apple Festival at Big View. So I think sometimes directors overlook community things. Maybe it's at the library, they're having a big meeting and you could put a wind ensemble there, 4 clarinets to play, or maybe it's tree lighting, those things. So I think even though they seem to be small in stature, you do a tree lighting ceremony, how many people see that and gets positive. So I think that's a great impact. And if you don't have that impact on the community, it leaks right over to your school board and everything else. Because those people are the ones who will complain to the school board, whoa, we should have this, something to that effect.
Oh, that's a good viewpoint. I remember back in junior high, when you were the director, every year we had a chamber music recital. Mm-hmm. And every student, little chamber group, or maybe a solo. And those things were very well attended.
Yes. And I think there's nothing that makes a kid more proud to stand up and play a solo, right? They remember that their total life. Great. And it doesn't have to be something that's that virtuosity. I mean, it can be a nice solo based on the kid's level. It doesn't have to be, a Mozart concerto. But yeah, I agree. We should try to do that as much as we can.
You have soloists with the youth band sometimes, don't you?
Definitely. Yeah, I think a lot of the times we try to incorporate within pieces. We're doing this one fun piece called Funky Town. And, it features like 2 flute solos, 2 clarinet solos, a couple saxes, tubas, and try to get kids into that, even though it's a 16 major solo. But yeah, I think band directors too I don't know, they tend to maybe want to play these high-level festival pieces all the time. They're can be boring to the audience if there's too much of it, and forget some of those items like Funky Town that, really make an impression on everybody and should be part of, right. a serious programming.
Having a nice balance.
Right, a nice balance, And I think, too, another thing that I hear, and I'm not a private teacher, but I go to band concerts and all I'm hearing are orchestral transcriptions. A Bach organ fugue. Well, that's pretty nice, but, what happened to the band music, to things written for band? I think we overlook that a little bit as band directors, perhaps.
So I imagine you see a lot of families. How important do you think music is with today's family union?
Well, I think certainly in concert scenes, you see grandparents, uncles, aunts all coming. And I think you see that in school programs too, marching bands, jazz bands. The same might be true of whether it's teen baseball. Maybe kids play baseball. Maybe some people think there's too many practices. But on the other hand, you go to a field, what do you see? Parents, families sitting around watching the kids. That's good because family units tend not to be so cohesive. So I think, music can be very family cohesive.
I ask that question because sometimes in my studio, I'll have one child and then, the sibling's going to learn a similar instrument, or in my case, woodwinds.
Definitely.
And it's sometimes an opportunity for them to make music together. And I was thinking probably in a band situation, you would experience that as well. And at the Father's Day concert, as you said, it was really crowded. Of course, it was 2 bands there. But I did see a lot of families, having a nice time. And so I think there are important values there.
I think also that kids carry that over, let's say, play in a church group and those types of things. That's also such a nice addition, family-orientated, other community groups that they might get into.
So the whole thing with my website is spreading the love of music and the importance of music. And, it's, I don't know, I think it will transform the world. I don't know if you think that's crazy or not. Now, I want to ask you a question about, this will take you back some years. You had a wonderful system of teaching rhythm. And I remember when I started lessons, counting and notation was, beyond my understanding. And I, at the time, was 11. So my memory is it had something to do with tapping the feet in a down-up system. And so my question to you is, did you devise that system, or how did you come upon that? And does it still work?
Well, for many it does. There actually was a method book that I had used going way back. I don't know if that was the first one, Ed Saweda method, if you're familiar with it. But Ed Saweda, he, right from the beginning, all his, from page 1, has big arrows over it. Tap, 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 tut, 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 the whole way through it. And then in the end, he had a conglomeration of exercises just on one line, not tonal based, that he did that. Now, whether that was the first I used it, but to me, it is so visual, and it's part of your, of your body when you're into that. And sometimes kids will say, well, I don't have to tap because I can play these quarter notes without all that. And I said, well, the reasoning is this. It's like a ruler. Your tapping is a ruler. Yeah, you can measure a box 2 feet wide without the ruler, but now we're looking at a huge warehouse. How do you measure that unless you have the system? So the tapping is your system, and you're measuring everything. In some instruments, of course, you need to count, like in drummers, 1 E and a 2 E, all that stuff. So I don't know. It's visual. Kids like it. And now and then you do get a student that's, for some reason, their foots are going all over the place. But,
well, yeah, I've seen that.
And marking the music. Can you mark that? Anyway, that's a little bit. I'm sure you've used some of that, or used the counting.
The
method.
visual, and I think physically being able to feel the beat is important. Of course, you go into a concert situation, and then your director's gonna say, okay, don't tap your foot, tap your toe in there, and I was just curious about that. I remember seeing my old books, and I had looked at them, and I didn't use arrows. I used D's and U's.
Oh, D and U. You could use D or U. Yeah.
And it's great. That just formulated everything for me, because I learned syncopation. I could look at whole rhythm patterns.
Right.
And the best gift from all that is it helped me to be a good sight reader. And if you can look at music and understand how the rhythm works, it's much easier to tackle the other problems.
Now, how do you handle your students with timing? Do you use the tapping, or do you have them count?
We do a combination. I like everybody to tap their foot if that's possible. And being able to feel and play with a steady beat is really important. And, understanding, a quarter note is twice as long as an eighth note. And we use arrows sometimes. And if we're getting into more complicated rhythms, I think it's important to also use the counting and be able to say the counting.
Oh, yeah.
My theory is that the real musical instrument is in here, the brain. And your saxophone or your flute or your clarinet or your trumpet, those are your tools. And those are wonderful tools, and there's a lot to learning them. But if it's not happening here, it's not going to come out here. And that's my approach, to be able to do that first. And some people that's very innate and happens quickly, and other people it's a step-by-step process. What have you seen change in music education, and what are the challenges for today's music teacher, do you think?
Well, I think it's definitely more difficult to make a living as strictly a musician than it was. All of us know that for lots of different reasons. In schools, the cutbacks of music ed varying from state to state and district to district, so there's not as many jobs out there as there were, and I don't see that increasing with today's thought process. Also, a lack of opportunities playing commercially, jobs being out there. For instance, let's say when I was playing commercially back in the 60s and 70s, I knew I could get three gigs a week just by phone calls coming in.
Wow.
They were there, and there was a demand for it, and it paid good money. Now I see a lot of musicians today, playing for very little, or because they really enjoy it.
Right.
I'm not trying to knock that. So I'm saying commercially, there's not as much there. Teaching is a little less. And as you know, there's a lot of other avenues in music that might be more towards the tech sides of all those aspects, which I'm not deeply familiar with them. So I do see other musicians that I know have got into, whether it's the recording techniques of music and acoustics. And one thing I do tell my students, and I've had a couple kids that thought they wanted to go on to music, and yet looking at that particular student didn't think it might be the best for them. Maybe it's because they didn't really have the innate ability that I think they should have. And I simply say, you know what, you can be of any occupation. One of the best trumpet players in this area is from Carlisle, a doctor. Trumpet player, knock your socks off. Yeah, he's an orthopedic surgeon. So I'm saying, don't give up your feeling of music just because you don't have a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah, and then you have certain kids, they could be destined to be in a symphony, and you encourage that. Oh, yeah, we have known them, and you've had those students, and I still see them that are, whoa,
Yeah.
So not to discourage that, but it's everything is changes, and this is, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but the opportunities aren't quite the same as they were 20
Things
years
have
ago.
definitely changed,
Changing.
and if you don't keep up with the times,
Right.
as you say, you might get out of the loop, which can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Music for Life thing is a great idea, and I think it brings value. I have some adult students. They're playing. They love it. It's their recreation. It's their therapy in some cases.
Very much so.
And so I hope that my students that don't become music majors will continue to play in college. And many of them have plans to do that because they enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. And I think by getting your students out there and playing in the community, they get to see, oh, this is more than just a band. This is more than just a grade or a school activity. This is something that connects with my life beyond that.
On another side, as soon as maybe I meet a group of people and they say, oh, you're a band director. Oh, my. And they go on and unload and tell you how great the marching band was and what they played. And they just go on and on. Their eyes are glowing. They want to tell the stories. In fact, I went to an attorney, and he turned out he knew I was a music teacher, and I swear he took the first 40 minutes of his time to tell me about his experience playing the flutophone and starting clarinet. He went on and on. It was his hours. I wasn't being booked. But if you're a musician, you are held up in very high esteem in the adult world. They admire that you can play an instrument. Definitely.
That's a good words. So what advice do you have for young people that want to teach music and get into the music profession?
Well, I think if this is your level of life, that's what you should do, and there's avenues out there for you. But I think you have to be at the top of your game, today to get a teaching job. Competition's a little more, but, you should follow that and do that. Definitely. There's things out there for you. And I can see that with a lot of my own students that I've had now playing professionally. Some of them you would know went on to become, well established and so forth. Well, our time is up, I see. Wow.